Have you ever wondered what really lurks in the dark? I used to think I knew, but I was wrong, so terribly wrong. My name is Michael, and I'm one of the few survivors left after the world went dark. It all started on what seemed like a normal Tuesday evening. I was sitting at home, scrolling through my phone and half watching TV when suddenly, everything went black. At first, I thought it was just a power outage in my neighborhood, but as the minutes ticked by and my phone wouldn't turn on, I started to worry. I looked out the window and saw only darkness, no streetlights, no headlights from cars, nothing. An eerie silence had fallen over the city. That's when I first felt it, a chill down my spine, like something was watching me from the shadows. As the hours passed, panic set in. People poured onto the streets, confused and scared. No one's phones or cars were working. It was like all electricity had simply vanished. We huddled together, sharing what little information we had. Some said it was just our city, others claimed it was nationwide, but deep down, I think we all knew this was something much bigger. That first night was the longest of my life. We stayed in groups, using candles and flashlights to keep the darkness at bay. But as our batteries died and candles burned out, the shadows seemed to creep closer. I could have sworn I saw things moving in the dark, quick, darting shapes that vanished when I tried to focus on them. By morning, we learned the truth. This wasn't just a blackout, it was worldwide. All forms of electricity had stopped working, plunging the entire planet into darkness. Chaos erupted as people realized how dependent we'd become on technology. No communications, no transportation, no modern conveniences. We were thrown back into the dark ages in an instant. But that was just the beginning of our nightmare. It started with whispers, stories of people going missing in the night. At first, we dismissed them as panic and confusion, but as the days went by, more and more people disappeared, and those who remained started to change. I noticed it in my neighbor, Mrs. Johnson. She'd always been a kind, gentle old lady, but a week after the blackout, I saw her in her yard, muttering to herself and clawing at the ground with bloody fingers. When she looked up at me, her eyes were different, empty, yet somehow hungry. That's when the screaming started. It came from all directions, piercing through the darkness. I ran outside and saw people fleeing in terror, and behind them I still have trouble describing what I saw. It was like the shadows themselves had come alive, writhing and twisting into horrifying shapes. Long, spindly limbs reached out from the darkness, grabbing people and dragging them into the night. I ran, God help me. I ran and didn't look back. I could hear the screams fading behind me, replaced by a sound that still haunts my nightmares, a low, rumbling growl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. For days, I hid in an abandoned store, too terrified to venture out, but hunger and thirst eventually forced me to move. The city had become a wasteland. Cars lay abandoned in the streets, buildings stood empty, and an oppressive silence hung over everything. But worst of all was the constant feeling of being watched, hunted. I met other survivors as I scavenged for food and supplies. We banded together, finding safety in numbers. That's when we started to piece together what was happening. An old man named Frank told us about ancient legends, stories passed down through generations but long forgotten in our modern world. He spoke of creatures older than humanity, beings of darkness that had been driven back by the discovery of fire and later, electricity. The light had kept them at bay for millennia, but now that it was gone, they were free to roam once more. At first, I didn't want to believe it. It sounded too crazy, too impossible, but after what I'd seen, after what we'd all experienced, how could I deny it? We learned to survive in this new world of darkness. Fire became our most precious resource, not just for warmth and light, but for protection. We discovered that these creatures, whatever they were, couldn't stand the light. It was our only defense against them. But fire can only last so long, and each night brought new horrors. We lost people, good people, to the darkness. Sometimes we'd hear their screams in the distance. Other times they'd simply vanish without a trace. And all the while, those things grew bolder, stronger. I'll never forget the night they first spoke to us. We were huddled around a bonfire, taking shifts to keep watch, when a voice drifted out of the darkness. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard, deep and guttural, yet somehow melodic. It whispered promises of power, of knowledge beyond our wildest dreams. All we had to do was step into the shadows, embrace the darkness. Some were tempted. I saw the longing in their eyes, the desire to end this nightmare one way or another. We lost 3 people that night, watched as they walked willingly into the inky blackness. Their screams haunted us for hours afterward. As weeks turned into months, we learned more about our enemy. They weren't just monsters lurking in the dark, they were intelligent, cunning. They could mimic voices, luring people away from the safety of the light. They could create illusions, making you see things that weren't there. And worst of all, they could get inside your head, planting thoughts and doubts that weren't your own. We called them the Shadowkin, these beings of darkness that had reclaimed our world, and with each passing day, their hold on the planet grew stronger. But humanity is nothing if not resilient. We adapted, we fought back, we created safe zones, using every source of light we could find: fires, glow sticks, even bioluminescent plants and animals. We learned to harness the power of the sun, using mirrors and lenses to direct sunlight into dark spaces. And slowly, we began to uncover the truth about the Shadowkin and the Blackout. It started with an old journal we found in an abandoned library. It spoke of an ancient war between light and darkness, a battle that had raged since the dawn of time. The journal claimed that electricity hadn't been discovered by chance, it had been given to humanity by beings of light to help us fight the darkness. The more we searched, the more evidence we found: hidden messages in ancient texts, symbols carved into forgotten ruins, stories passed down through secret societies. They all pointed to the same conclusion: our world had been a battleground for eons, and we had been oblivious pawns in a cosmic war. But knowledge, as they say, is power, and with this new understanding came hope. If electricity had been a weapon against the Shadowkin, perhaps we could find a way to bring it back. Our group, which had grown to several hundred survivors, set out on a desperate mission. We traveled across the country, braving the dangers of the eternal night, searching for any clue that could help us restore power to the world. Our journey was fraught with peril. We lost many good people along the way. The Shadowkin hounded us at every turn, growing more aggressive as if they knew what we were trying to do. But we pressed on, driven by the hope of reclaiming our world. Finally, after months of searching, we found it, a hidden facility deep underground, untouched by the Blackout. Inside, we discovered technology beyond our wildest dreams and the key to bringing back the light. But the Shadowkin weren't about to let us succeed without a fight. As we worked to activate the device that could restore electricity, they launched their final assault. The darkness itself seemed to come alive, pouring into the facility like a flood of pure terror. I watched in horror as people I'd come to call friends were swallowed by the shadows. Their screams echoed through the corridors as we raced to complete our task. The air grew thick with an otherworldly presence, and I could feel icy tendrils trying to worm their way into my mind. Just when all seemed lost, when the darkness was about to overwhelm us, we did it. With a blinding flash and a roar like thunder, electricity surged back to life. Light flooded the facility, driving back the shadows. The Shadowkin's shrieks of rage and pain were deafening. I saw them writhing in agony, their forms dissipating like smoke in the wind. In moments, they were gone, banished once more by the power of light. As electricity spread across the globe, we emerged from the facility to a world reborn. Lights flickered on in abandoned cities, engines roared to life, and the hum of technology filled the air once more. We had won. Humanity had reclaimed its place in the world, pushing back the ancient darkness. But as I stood there, watching the sun rise for the first time in nearly a year, I couldn't shake a lingering doubt. Had we truly defeated the Shadowkin? Or had we simply driven them back into hiding, to wait for another chance to strike? And what of the beings of light who had given us electricity in the first place? Where were they in our hour of need? As I write this, life has largely returned to normal. People go about their daily lives, enjoying the comforts of modern technology once more. Most have convinced themselves that the Blackout and the horrors that followed were just a shared delusion, a mass hysteria brought on by the sudden loss of electricity. But I know the truth. I've seen what lurks in the darkness, waiting for its chance to return, and so, I keep a flashlight with me at all times, extra batteries in every pocket. I sleep with the lights on and jump at every shadow. Because now I know the truth that most have forgotten or chosen to ignore. The light isn't just a convenience or a comfort, it's the only thing standing between us and an ancient, unimaginable evil. Or so I thought. It was exactly 1 year after we restored power to the world when I made a chilling discovery. I was organizing old documents from our journey when I found a hidden compartment in my backpack. Inside was a small, pulsating orb that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As I held it, memories came flooding back, memories I didn't know I had. I saw myself in that underground facility, but not as I remembered. In this vision, I wasn't fighting against the darkness, I was embracing it. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. We hadn't defeated the Shadowkin, we had become them. The blackout, the year of darkness, it was all a test, a crucible to forge a new kind of being, one that could exist in both light and shadow. And I, along with the other survivors, had passed that test. The Shadowkin hadn't been trying to destroy humanity, they'd been trying to elevate us, to help us evolve. The beings of light, the ones we thought had given us electricity to fight the darkness. They were the real enemy, keeping humanity trapped in a limited existence. As I sit here, the realization sinking in, I can feel the change within me. The shadows no longer terrify me, they call to me, promising power and knowledge beyond imagination. And I'm not alone. All around the world, other survivors are awakening to their true nature. The war isn't over, it's just beginning. But this time, we're not fighting against the darkness, we're fighting with it, against the tyranny of light that has blinded humanity for so long. So I ask you one last time, have you ever wondered what really lurks in the dark? Look in the mirror, the answer might surprise you. Because in the end, the greatest twist wasn't that darkness invaded our world, it's that we were the darkness all along, and now, we're finally awake. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more supernatural ghost stories and horror tales.